Hello everyone and welcome to Patrick's Basement and today's review. It will be an honor to focus on two very special heroes that were known in 1966 as Dynamic Duo. Some of you out there know exactly who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Batman and Robin, of course, but we are not staying in 1966. Adam West and Burt have already their review. No, we are traveling forward to 1995, wherein Batman Forever, Batman and Robin celebrate their resurrection as Dynamic Duo in a reboot. Let's celebrate too! I take you and you with me, I take all of you with me, and we'll take a look at these two figures together, and since they're a team and belong together, this will be a double review.
Oh my god.
Let's start with the packaging, and the first thing we notice is that both look identical in terms of design, with only a few color differences here and there, as can be seen here in the names, the border of the packaging and the credits on the back. Otherwise, as already mentioned, the structure is the same for both. On both sides we see both Batman and Robin depicted large and white on the front. In the top right is the Bat logo surrounded by Riddler's question mark, along with the corresponding movie title, in this case Batman Forever. On the respective sides are the name of our two heroes, Batman in gray, Robin in yellow. Looking closely, we notice a small addition below the Batman lettering, Sona Suit. We'll get to that as soon as we finished with the packaging. Further down we see the Bat logo again, including the movie title. The credits are on the back. If we pull the cardboard slipcase upwards, we can see our figures looking through a window. They'll have to wait a little longer though. On the top sides above the window we see Batman and Robin lettering again, and below the window the movie logo. On the back we see the movie logo again in large print, and as I mentioned at the beginning, the color difference between the two packages is now really clear. While Batman's packaging is light and dark gray, Robin's packaging is light and dark yellow. I'd say your two heroes have waited long enough. I'd say it's time to free your Dynamic Duo from the packaging! Can I even say Dynamic Duo anymore? Things have changed a bit since 1966, and the same applies to these two gentlemen here, of course. In addition to a numerous animated series, Batman and Robin hunted criminals together. But as far as the live action films go, it actually took 29 years before Batman and Robin were seen together on screen again. Val Kilmer and Donnell replaced Adam West and Burt, thus beginning a new era. But they not only replaced Adam West, but also Michael Keaton as Batman. Tim Burton, who had previously directed Batman and Batman Returns, was replaced by Joel Schumacher. The whole concept was changed somewhat, as it was felt that the first two films under Tim Burton's direction were a bit too dark, so they wanted to appeal more to a younger audience with Schumacher. And so from dark and biting, a family-friendly, brightly colored, flashy action version of Batman emerged. This may sound a bit negative, but I actually had a blast with Batman Forever. And how you could not, when you read names like Jim Carrey, Tommy Lee Jones, Drew Barrymore, Nicole Kidman, and so on in the cast. But we don't necessarily want to talk about the film right now, although I could do for hours. Now today we're talking about these two figures. I like to start with Batman, and then we'll move on to Robin a little later. As much as I was excited to see this figure, there's also a small shadow hanging over it. Just a short time after this figure arrived, I heard on the news that Val Kilmer had died of pneumonia after a long battle with throat cancer. As much as I wish my childhood heroes would live forever, it's sadly a reality that they too must pass away one day. In the next few minutes it will be an honor for me to take another little trip back to 1995. It seems like just yesterday that I saw the film in the theater. I would like to start with the head, and from my point of view I will say that Val has been captured very well here. I know it's always easy to say that he looks like Val since half of his face is covered by a mask. In the past I have presented numerous Batman figures where it was possible to swap out the heads, once with and once without a mask. Here it's actually not the case that we have an additional head without a mask. To be honest, that would not make sense to me since it never really appeared in the film that Batman took off his mask, even though I'm a huge fan of such things. Nevertheless, we should concentrate on the mouth and the eyes, and we have to admit that Val Kilmer has been captured very well. I particularly like the eyes, and they are very recognizable for me. The entire cowl is made of plastic and is made from a single piece. You might be wondering, one piece? Yes, but the mouthpieces are interchangeable. No, they aren't. I was actually surprised that it isn't possible to swap the mouthpieces using a magnet like with previous Batman figures. We also know from previous reviews that it was possible to swap the mouthpieces using an integrated magnet to give Batman different facial expressions. But that's not the case with this figure. The mouth is therefore firmly attached to the cowl, making it a single piece. This means that we're unfortunately left empty-handed. At least it's possible to move the eyes, even though this isn't a DX version. This is where the good old PERS parallel eyeball rolling system comes into the play again. All we have to do is remove the cowl. If we take a closer look, we see two joysticks on the inside that we can't possibly move with our fingers. To make things a little easier, we get this neat part. We see that it has two different ends. We only interested in the left side at the moment. The right side, which looks like a fork, will be used later. So as mentioned, we take the left side and insert it into the opening of the joysticks and can thus position the eyes as desired. As nice as it is that the eyes can be moved, the whole thing will look better if the head could be rotated a bit. But that's a well-known problem with Batman that was only resolved in the Bale era in The Dark Knight. Let's move on the cape, which consists of two layers of velvety fabric with a faux leather look. In terms of both appearance and material, I'd say this cape is the best version of all the capes in my Batman collection. If we unfold it, we can see that the cut is designed as if it were the wings of a bat. Let's move on from the cape to the Batsuit, because the Riddler was so evil, he thought he had to pay Bruce Wayne a visit and destroy the entire Batcave, including all the equipment and the Batsuits. Unfortunately, he didn't spare my favorite Batmobile either. I'll never forget that. It hurts. In any case, all the suits except one were destroyed, namely the Batsuit with the Tsunami modification. Hot Toys apparently had two options. They decided on the standard suit, which differs only slightly from the suits from the first two films with Michael Keaton, or they chose the Tsunami suit, which differed significantly from the other suits from the past. I think Hot Toys made the right decision to release Batman with this suit, and the fans will certainly thank them. The suit is as it should be, otherwise completely made of rubber, and is not as expected in black, but it has a silver speckled metallic look. He is quite soft and can be impressed in some places and give in, which will be our doom a little later, because unfortunately arches form in some places as soon as certain limbs such as arms or legs are moved, especially with this figure. This can be seen very strongly. That's why I give you the hint again, never, under any circumstances, put your figure in the display case with bent arms or legs. Take pictures, make as many poses as you want, but then put our figure with outstretched arms back in the display case. Otherwise you have ugly imprints if it goes well. If it goes badly, you have cracks in the suit, and that's annoying. If we look at the chest, we quickly realize that the days of the yellow oval bat logo are over. This is the last time Batman wears the logo with a yellow background. It's almost ironic, I suppose to say the least. Not only did the Riddler destroy the Batcave, resulting in the destruction of all the suits, but the iconic yellow oval Batman logo also came to an end. Further down on the abdomen, we see laterally integrated ribs and integrated abdominal muscles. Also over are the days when Batman wore a yellow utility belt. This one matches his suit and is silver. The Bat logo is clearly visible in the center, also in gold. The clothes are still black and to my surprise made of rubber. I was expecting plastic. What I particularly like about these are the fins. The other suits always had 3 separate fins on the clothes. Here they blend nicely into one another, and when you add the silver, it looks like a blade. And I really like that. Also very nice to look at are the boots. They are very elongated and in one piece. And you know what it means when I say in one piece. This means that we will also have problems with mobility here. Personally, I always prefer boots that are in one piece because the optical look is more important to me than the mobility, especially if you get a Batman, and especially this one. You will notice relatively quickly that you are a friend of numerous poses. You won't be happy with this figure. Let's take a closer look because now we come to the mobility. The head is made entirely of plastic and, as is typical for Batman, has problems moving it. Unfortunately, it's no different here. Nothing can be turned left or right. Unfortunately, there is nothing to do back and forth either. The torso can be turned slightly left and right. Unfortunately, not much forward either, but a little backward. The arms can actually be extended sideways by about 90 degrees. As for extending forward, unfortunately we only reach about 45 degrees. You can see how the suit is already bulging. Bending, however, works perfectly thanks to the integrated ratchet joint. The legs unfortunately can only be extended forward to a limited extent. Here we only reach 20 degrees. Bending also works without problems, although no ratchet joints were used. And as already mentioned, the boots are one piece, and that's a good thing. However, the articulation suffers as a result. The feet aren't very adjustable. Nevertheless, the figure is so well balanced that we could do without the base. Let's move on to accessories! We have a total of 9 interchangeable hands, 1 folded sonic batarang and 1 unfolded sonic batarang, 1 batarang launcher with the corresponding accessories, 1 batarang clamp launcher, an underwater thruster, and the sonar effect lenses. Let's start with the base, which is made entirely of plastic and at first glance looks very familiar. In terms of construction, it is identical to the 89 version of Batman and Batman Returns. Only the movie logo of the figure in question has changed, as here the movie logo in the form of a bat signal surrounded by a question mark can be seen on the beautiful, smooth, shiny surface. I particularly like the combination of the bat logo and the Riddler's question mark. The green really stands out against the shiny black base. So we know the base looks good, but unfortunately the base does have one negative aspect, and I wonder what Hot Toys was thinking. As I just mentioned, the base is structurally identical to the bases from the 89 version of Batman and Batman Returns, except for the difference that it was possible to light them. You might be wondering, but yes, I do see 2 lights. That's right, but it's not possible to light them on. Firstly, you will need a battery compartment and a switch. You look in vain for the switch. It's not here. The funny thing is, as far as the battery compartment goes, there was actually one here. But it seems to have been sealed, for whatever reason. It doesn't matter to me, since I wouldn't use this lightning, it might be annoying for some of you out there. So this mystery will probably remain unsolved forever, and only Hot Toys has the answer. At the bottom we see a silver plaque with the lettering Batman. From the base we move on to Sonic Batarang. It's more or less available in 2 versions, one folded and one unfolded. The Sonic Batarang was used relatively late in the film. when Batman uses this weapon to free Dr. Chase Meridian and Robin on Claw Island by hurling the battering directly into the main remote and Ceph hologram stimulator box. I've noticed, as I did in my last review, that Hot Toys prefer to release things like this battering in two versions rather than making one unfoldable battering. It was the same with my Robert Pattinson Batman with the torches. They prefer to make two torches rather than one extendable torch. It used to be a small feat for Hot Toys to produce something like this, considering what they've done in the past. And it didn't matter how small the accessories were, they always outdid themselves. Nowadays, people prefer to go the route of dual execution. Let's get to the battering launcher, and it came into the use shortly after Batman released Chase and Robin from their glass vessels. Both fell into the deeps, but Batman was able to save both at the last moment thanks to this item of equipment. The launcher is black and made of plastic. On the backside we see a silver sleeve in which the winch is located, while on the front we see a silver battering that can even be removed. The launcher can be easily attached to the cloth. Here too we have the possibility to choose between two versions, because in addition we get a battering with rope. The rope is actually metal. Of course it will not make sense to use a real rope here, as it's supposed to give the appearance that Batman is shooting the battering away. If you want the variant with rope, all you have to do is remove the battering at the front. Now you take the battering with rope and put it in the opening scene at the front of the launcher. And done! Let's move on the battering clamp launcher, and as you know I always try to prepare as best as I can for the upcoming reviews. I watch the movies for that purpose several times if necessary, but this piece of equipment doesn't appear in any scene that comes to mind. At first I thought it was the cutter that Batman used to cut the bolt from the chain, but apparently it isn't. I'm at a loss. If anyone knows, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, this actually looks pretty cool. The blade can even rotate 360 degrees. Unfortunately, I also have no idea where exactly the clamp launcher is supposed to be attached, as it's not in the description. I've simply attached it to the hands and hope that's the right thing to do. At least with this piece of equipment I know exactly where and how it was used. This is the underwater thruster. It was used when Batman came to Robin's aid. The two were on their way to Riddler's headquarters on Claw Island, when Riddler and Two-Face decided to play Battleship and quickly blew up Robin's boat. Robin was surrounded underwater by 7 enemies when Batman came to his aid. And with this item he could not only move at lightning speed, we can see the 2 small purple rotors here. No! He could even shoot out a net to catch his opponents. And now we come to a really cool thing. We will have to make a little jump to the end of the movie. We remember that Batman, before he threw the sonic battering into the gigantic box that was directly above the head of the Riddler and thus destroyed it. But to hit the box with such exact precision, Batman needed a kind of aiming device, the so-called sonar lenses. We actually have the option to replace Batman's eyes with the sonar lenses. We have to do the following. We will remove the head first. Now the same tool comes into the play again as the beginning of the video, with the help of which we remove the standard eyes. This time, however, we use the side that looks like a fork. Once we have removed the eyes, we replace them with the sonar lenses. When we've done that, we put our head back on your shoulders. And that's it! I have to admit that it looks really cool. Unfortunately, it looks much easier than it is. Sometimes you have to be very patient to change the lenses, because often this part gets stuck here in the coal, so that you can't get to the lenses. You are then more or less forced, like me, to reach for tools to remove this piece of plastic, and that's annoying. I'd say we give Batman a break and move on to Robin! Robin, aka Richard Dick Grayson. This is the first time since the 60s that we've seen Robin alongside Batman in a live-action film. Robin is a very popular character known for his acrobatics and martial arts skills. Robin is played by Chris O'Donnell, replacing Burt Ward. The face is more than successful and looks really good, there's no question about it. Chris O'Donnell is absolutely recognizable here and absolutely thrilled. The mask in the new version of Robin is a bit wider, which makes him look a bit more serious than the previous one. The Robin logo is visible above the mask. There is a black makeup around the eyes like Batman's. This makes the blue eyes stand out better. On the sides we can see the sideburns poking out from under the mask. Although I'm not a big fan of sculpted hair, but this one, I really like it. It's really well done on this figure. By the way, as you can see, there is no seam or anything like that, so nothing magnetic to remove or anything like that. Robin's eyes don't move like Batman's, although it would have made more sense here since Robin's head can move. But I'd rather accept that the eyes can move than have such an ugly seam across the entire head. Let's move on the cape. It's also made of two layers. The outside is made of black faux leather, while the inside is made of a golden velvet fabric. I like the color combination of black and gold, especially noticeable at the top of the collar. The cape is quite a bit shorter than Batman's cape. It also has integrated wires around the edge, which allows for some manipulation of the cape. Ideal if you have certain poses in mind. Let's move on to suit. If I said in the past and I say it again, I love this suit. I don't know what it is, whether it's the design or the colors, I have no idea. But like I said, I love it. Purely in terms of design, they stuck very close to the original Robin from the 60s. We have the red, the green, and what used to be yellow is no gold. They've also added a bit of black, but that's not meant to be negative. On the contrary, it really enhances the suit. In the middle we can actually see Robin's trademark, the horizontal lacing, just like the costume from the 60s. What has changed, however, is the Robin logo, which we find on the left side of the chest. Looking at the suit as a whole, the design is somewhat reminiscent of Batman's suit from the 1989, which was heavily based on the human anatomy. It's somewhat reminiscent of gladiators from Roman times. The famous bat nipples, as they were so aptly called, were also included. They caused a huge stir among fans. Further down is the belt, which is gold, and there is a bird on the belt buckle. And the clothes on this figure are made of plastic and the fins are separate. This time we remember that they are interlocking on Batman. However, caution is advised here too. The fins are extremely sharp. If you value your cape dearly, I advise you to be careful. Otherwise you will have extinguishers in your cape, or like me while filming this video, in your fingers. The boots are also made of plastic and are made of a single piece. The design is relatively simple. At the top we see another bird. Even though it's more bat shaped, it should actually be a bird. Very nice, I like it. Unfortunately, we have similar problems with the suit as with Batman. It can be pressed in just as easily as if it were inflated, and unfortunately it also bulges. The situation is different with the legs. The suit fits so tightly that we can't move the legs at all. Here too, pose, take pictures, then return it to the display case, keep the arms outstretched, and definitely not bent. Let's talk about the mobility. The head can rotate once its own axis. Moving forward and backward works perfectly. Unfortunately, the torso can't be rotated sideways very much. Moving forward and backward isn't possible either. The arms can be extended at least 80 degrees to the sides. Moving forward, unfortunately, only reach 45 degrees. Bending them, however, works without any problems. Unfortunately, the legs can't be moved forward at all. I haven't tried that before. Bending the legs only works to a limited extent. The boots are also in one piece, but to my surprise that can be moved forward and backward a little. Robin, like Batman, is so well balanced that we could do without the base. Let's get to the accessories! We have 6 interchangeable hands. We have... Oh, that's embarrassing. We don't have anything. Maybe we could... Hey Bruce! Could you lend me something? I don't have any accessories, and that's pretty embarrassing. Dick, you live in my house. You eat my food. You take the Batmobile for a ride without my permission. You wear a suit that actually belongs to me, and now you want my accessories too? I mean, what's next? Your own signal? Alright, I got you. And so poor Robin doesn't have any accessories. I've never had that either. Honestly, I always thought that one day I did review Superman, who doesn't have any accessories. The reason Robin doesn't have any here is simply because he didn't have any in the movie either. At least he has the base, which I don't need to go into further detail about, as it's exactly the same as Batman's, only the name on the plaque changes. My conclusion as a fan of the film, owning these two figures is a must for me, and how long did I have to wait and hope that they were finally released here. Admittedly, not everything is perfect. Take the base for example, which has light spots still can be illuminated, not to mention the eternal struggle with changing the lenses or the suits, some of which bulge extremely. If there were a competition for the best poses, these two wouldn't have win any prize either. But honestly, who among you buys a Batman figure and expect it to move as acrobatically as a Spider-Man? Absolutely no one. And here we are! We all have this hobby the same. We buy and collect these figures for one reason: the look. And you have to admit, they look really good. That's why my rating is as follows. And what you can do with these figures, I'll show you now. we've already reached the end of today's review, and I hope you enjoyed it. Before we finished, however, I'd like to say a huge thank you to Dave. Not only is Dave the owner of a small nerdican shop from which I bought these two gentlemen here, but Dave also has artistic talents and sent me this drawing of our Dark Knight. Amazing. Thank you for that. After spending so much time in Gotham City, 2 Batman reviews in a row, we desperately need a change of scenery. How about Middle-earth? I've mentioned InArt so many times in the past. InArt here, InArt there, but is InArt really that good? Well, I think it's time to find it out, because in the next review I'll introduce you none other than Aragorn from Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, from where's what? Right, InArt. But until then, I say goodbye for now, so there is only one more thing left to say. If you look for toys, then Patrick's your choice. See you then.